with Mike and Freddie.
Tuesday tips on writing from Mike Barron and Freddie Barron.
Tuesday tutorials.
Yeah.
Today I want to talk about how long your novel should be. And the obvious answer is it should be as long as it needs to be to tell the story. But that doesn't really account for novel lengths. I've been reading this slim little book by Michener. It's called Literary Reflections, and it's about how he became a writer, who impressed him, and the writers that he's met, and is probably the smallest book he ever wrote. Now, I've read a number of Michener's, and I recommend him highly. He's a great writer, highly entertaining. If you want to learn history, it's one of the most enjoyable ways you can do it. My favorite Michener is Mexico. It's about the history of Mexico, starting back in the Paleolithic era, as many of his books do. But it's unique among Michener books in that it has a sense of humor. Michener's a pretty dour writer, and I've read a lot of his books, including The Source and Centennial. And in fact, Centennial, which is about Colorado, where I live, I joke that I'm still reading Centennial Day 1011 to 783. I never did finish Centennial. I got about 2/3 of the way through it. And I think, till I got to the modern era, and it was less interesting then. How long is Centennial? Centennial is 276,000 words. 276,000 words. Now, I know a number of writers who routinely write books over 100,000 words. Kevin J. Anderson is one. Kevin's an old friend of mine. He writes the Dune novels, but Kevin cheats, as I've mentioned many times before. He doesn't actually...
He's not cheating.
He doesn't type. He narrates everything into a recording device and has somebody transcribe it.
It's just another way of writing.
It is another way of writing. I'm just joking when I say he cheats, but it does have an effect on the narrative voice. I think that when you do that, it lends itself to an omniscient narrative voice, which allows you to jump from viewpoint to viewpoint within the confines of a single chapter. That's hard to pull off, but if you've mastered the omniscient voice, you can do it. I prefer a novel where each chapter is told from only one person's point of view. And I once met an author, and she told me, whoever wants something the most owns the point of view. But let's get back to the lengths of books. The combined Lord of the Rings is 480,000 words. The Old Man and the Sea is 27,000 words. It's one of Hemingway's most celebrated novels. It sold very well, and it won a Nobel Prize. And in this book, Michener recounts his meeting with Hemingway a year before Hemingway died, and it weighs upon the subject of the book is the articles that Michener was commissioned to write for many magazines, including Life magazine, one of which was The Bridges at Toko-Ri, one of many Michener books that was filmed. And Michener said, I cannot be critical of the vast amount of overwriting Hemingway did. 120,000 words when 10,000 were all that was needed, because I often worked that way myself. I have consistently turned into magazines and newspapers 3 to 4 times the number of words requested, prefaced by the note that will accompany these pages when I submit them to Scribner's. You were invited to edit this overlong manuscript to fit the space available. You are well-regarded editors, and cutting is your job. So a story is as long as it needs to be. Now, the type of novel that I write, hard-boiled crime, notably the biker series, I find myself turning in manuscripts between 75,000 and 85,000 words, which to me seems like a pretty good length for a work of fiction, something that'll take someone several days to read if they read straight through, and entertain them for that period. The average 300-page paperback contains 82,000 words. I've only written one novel over 100,000 words. That was my novel Banshees, about a satanic rock band that comes back from the dead. Generally, I shoot for around 80,000 words. I don't do this consciously. I don't tailor the story to fit the length. It's just that's the length I find that I need to tell most of my story. I also favor a chapter length between 1,100 and 1,500 words. I do that because it's like eating fondue. You eat one chunk at a time and it satisfies, and then when you grow hungry, you eat another chunk. I don't like long chapters, and I often find myself struggling to read long chapters, especially if they don't have a lot of indentations or paragraphs. You know what I mean by that, because prose has to have a rhythm and pulse all its own, and part of that is varying not only the length of the chapters, but the rhythm of the prose. And that means you can have a short sentence, and then you can have another short sentence. But in the scope of that paragraph, it might behoove you to expand that sentence a little so that the rhythm subconsciously intrigues and clicks with the reader. So how long does your novel have to be? It has to be as long as necessary. And this really doesn't bear on whether you force yourself to write or not, but if you don't force yourself to write, you're never going to finish the book. A friend of mine gave me a book called The War of Art. And essentially, every page, every essay in it was quit procrastinating, sit your ass down in the chair and write. Now, I know a number of successful authors. In fact, all the successful authors I know write up to 3,000 words a day, every day. Every day they sit down and do it. They have amazing discipline. My discipline could be better. People say, Mike, I don't know how you do it. You've turned out so many books. But when I say, geez, it seems to me that most of the time I just sit around with my thumb up my ass, and I don't know how these books get written. And I will say it's certainly a lot easier to write graphic novels, and I enjoy writing them just as much, but I don't intend to give up on novels.
All right.
That's it.
Yeah, very helpful. Are there any other, well, I always say other words of wisdom. You usually say wear a hat, which you're wearing, but anything else you would share with the audience? Okay, well, there's what's upcoming. What's upcoming projects?
I'm working on a new graphic novel for the Rippaverse. It's called Delta Core.
Very good.
I'm very excited about this because the structure came to me in the middle of the night. The other night I popped open and I woke up and I was so excited about the solution to the puzzle I created for myself, I couldn't get back to sleep. I'm also co-writing a novel with Blaine Pardo. Blaine is a great guy, and he's got a series of books out called Blue Dawn, which is about the dystopian future of the United States 5 years hence, wherein the left has achieved everything it's sought, which necessarily includes camps for people who don't think the right way. The novel we're working on is called Tenure. Okay. And it's about a teacher professor, a teacher of history who's also a veteran who refuses to use one of his students' preferred pronouns and the repercussions of that decision.
All right. Well, sounds like lots of great projects in the works, so appreciate you listening. Mike does have a website. What is it, Mike Barron Comics?
BarronComics.com is where you can find all the crowdfunded books I've been working on recently, including Thin Blue Line, Bronze Star, and Private American, and the latest, Florida Man vs. Hogzilla, which closes down this week. But if you order it before the end of the week, you get a poster by the great Adam Miller that's kind of a riff on the famous National Lampoon Vacation poster. Adam Miller is one of many police officers who have turned to art to make a living. Of course, Joe Jusko is the most famous among these, and Joe is rightly celebrated for his wonderful evocative paintings, especially the series of Edgar Rice Burroughs paintings he's been turning out recently. But there's a guy on Facebook named Brian Silverbacks who was roaring right along. Brian used to be a police officer too, and you should take a look at the art he's turning out because he just keeps getting better and better.
All right, great. Well, I guess enough self-promotion, but thank you for listening. Appreciate it, and stay tuned for next week. Bye-bye.